It's your boy. We out here today. I was supposed to get this out to you guys last night. Um, but getting it out to you today. It was real hot out here today. Laying out in the sun, just relaxing. Humidity was a little killer. A lot of haze. And we're gonna turn this show around. Still bring you great content. Well, with all the drama and all the nonsense, I've always downplayed my position. That's why I was kind of moving in the genre of true crime, which it all really is true crime, and getting out of the mob genre. Well, you can't get out of it. You talk good about it, you talk bad about it. The government don't want you talking about it at all. So, one person's list that we're all on, me especially, to make sure we take down. Then all the haters and everybody that swears they know you and know you from where you used to come from and say you over exaggerate. I've been underplaying my position and underplaying my stories. Been giving it to you real, no lies, always truth. But I leave out the parts, and there's people on here that won't say anything but know. So yeah, why I do know so much? Because I was a hardcore associate. I was supposed to get straightened out 3 different times. I was with a captain that didn't care that I wasn't a friend and would always tell me, pay attention and learn. And that's one of the stories that I'm going to tell you today. Actually, we would sit around our social club. I would never ask in other people's social clubs. I would just observe and learn. But when we were in our own social club, which we had many of, I would drill guys. Once I got in the door with a hello, how you doing, family, how we knew each other, I would dig right into them. If they were wise guys, if they were old timers, I would want to know everything about the life. I don't talk about it much. You do hear me say that I've wanted to be a part of this thing since I was 5 years old, and I never separated the two. Well, you know what? There came a time in my life that I probably could have stepped away and went back to making a lot of money and fell off the radar of the government, because the truth of the matter is I wasn't around for 6 years when I got pinched in 2011. 6 years. I stopped coming around June of 2005 when I got pinched. Spent a little over 3 months, almost 4 months on Rikers Island till I finally got bailed. Bailed out till 10 months, fought the case, copped out to a 2 flat, went up from a state charge. I was organized crime. At that point, it wasn't enterprise corruption. My first pinch was, but that was city time, which is Rikers Island time, local time. Anything more than a year and a day, anything more than a year and a day, you go up. That's why they give you a year and a day. If you get a flat year, or if you get a year, you spend 8 months on Rikers Island, city time, which is jail, not prison. People, that's why you always hear me separate the two. Trials and tribulations in jails and prisons. In the feds, they like to call them compounds. They stay there, I guess, because most feds, lock in cells, where a lot of even the maxes keep you locked out a lot of the times. The feds aren't big on that. So, when they do get to the yard and there's a lot more people, they call it a compound. I think only Rikers Island is probably a huge prison, even though it's a jail. It's probably bigger than most prisons, where there's many buildings and there's many people and the COs and count in general, workers, civilians, carpenters, electricians. You got to realize those people all exist in the jails as well. A lot of times, like in state prison, there'll be one head electrician, and then when guys would come in to do a bid, they'd have background in either carpentry, like, electrical work, food. There's always a civilian that runs the head of that, and then a CO, sergeant, lieutenant, that overlooks that. Most of the time, be like a high-ranking CO with a lot of time in. And then that civilian would hire people with food background to work the mess hall, which anybody does, but they've been people with electrician, electrical work background, and they would work for electrician. I was upstate, and a guy signed a phony form to play with a plug in, next to him where he slept, which is a cube. So the cube next to him would stay up late reading, and he bought a light from commissary, and it was a plug-in light, so it was plugged in the wall, and the light would shine, and this guy slept on the top bunk and would shine in his face. He happened to work for the electrician, and he signed a fake order. And some, prisons you can walk around. You have the right to walk around, and, there's designated areas for you to walk around. And he, which I'll tell more about these stories. That's not where I'm going with it, but just to show you. But he was an inmate, but he knew electrical work on the street. So what he did was, he comes in, gives the daytime CO work order. He signs off on it, goes over to the guy's cube. The guy's out in the yard, whatever he's doing for the day. Because usually you're programming, working, or doing, your yard time at certain times of the day. This particular one was a working dorm, so he was either working or at the yard. And he went into the guy's cube, because he had an order to. Because if you get caught in somebody's cube, it's like getting caught in somebody's cell. You're gonna get a beating. You're gonna get shanked up, piece of metal in you. So he goes and he plays with the plug, and he disconnects the plug. He was skilled that high in electrical work. Puts the plate back on, puts it back, and leaves. So for 2 days, but you know what? It was a Spanish kid. He knew for some reason. For 2 days, his plug wouldn't work. Charging his batteries, his headphones, trying to get his light. He read every night. And, a lot of these guys that used to read every night, if they weren't working, they'd sleep all day. So, by the second day, he knew. And kind of this, snitch move, because he went to the CO. And was like, listen, I need an order. This thing's broke. And the electrician comes in now with his helper, which was the guy that bunked next to him. He takes off the plate and goes, oh, the wire's disconnected. Now, it just wasn't falling off. It was disconnected. And the Spanish kid was standing over them and knew. The helper was there, which was the guy that lived next to him, who complained about the light all the time. And he just flipped out right there. So, things like that. You know what I mean? So we'll get into stories like that, and it wound up becoming a whole big thing. And you know what? They didn't look at the guy like a snitch, and he did. That's a snitch. It's a jailhouse snitch right there. And instead of the guy was an overweight, elderly white guy, in his 50s at the time. This was the early to mid 2000s. So from 2005 and 2011, I wasn't around. Christmas party 2009 is when the cooperator was wearing a wire at our Christmas party. Usually I wouldn't go to people in the family or other families' crews' Christmas parties. Usually I would just do our Christmas party was Christmas Eve, and it was always held at Aldo's. First Aldo's one was I think 1 year, and I don't even think he threw it. I think it really went full blown every Christmas Eve when Aldo's 2 opened. And, everybody would come in suits. Everybody would know to go there. It really wouldn't be an envelope day. Sometimes people would, but just in general. R.I.P. Meatball. If you've ever looked on the case with the most famous nicknames in Cosa Nostra, they say Mafia. I don't like to say that word. Frankie Meatball was actually above me, and I just heard that he passed with complications of COVID. Frankie Meatball and me, I was glad The last time I seen him was in the holding pen. He bailed out, and I got to see him at a co-defendant meeting. He came to one off the street into the prison, and we shook hands. We had a beef, and we'll talk about that story. There was a couple things, something I did in one of his social club that belonged to my friend who was a captain, gave him permission to open one that I did, and it was just something between me and him. I knew him before he got involved in the life, which he was just a friend of a friend. In the news, they probably considered him an associate, but he wasn't. He was a friend of a friend, but he was their biggest earner. He brought everything to the table. Sports, bookmaking, the athletes that gambled, all that stuff was all his guys. And he just passed away recently of COVID. Young guy, just a few years older than me. I mean, it's crazy how young guys are just passing away. But yeah, complications with COVID, he passed away. But I'm glad because we had a little bit of a beef of something I did in one of his social clubs out on Long Island. It was Long Island, Nassau County, Queens borderline, the club. And I'm glad that we made up because me and him went back to when I was, 10, 8. I knew him the old days, going back 30 years. He was from East New York, Fulton Avenue. That's where he was from. Came from a well-to-do Sicilian family. I think they say Calabrese. I think he was Calabrese body. I'm not sure. But he acted like a Sicilian. But he definitely wasn't Sicilian. But his house, they lived by me in Centerville. His family, after coming out of East New York. So, we went back to the old days of when all the Italians were around the city line, East New York part of that area. So, sleep in peace, Frankie Meatball. He was a good guy. He was a regular guy. He was a working guy. He, no matter what, he was a big card player, big gambler. That's all he did. Everything with him was bookmaking and card games. Not even Shylocking or anything like that. Bookmaking and gambling and horses, and that was his life. He loved that. But every day, he got up, he worked for a great oil company. He was a salesman, manager, boss, no matter what. There was days that I didn't want to pick up my check from my union job. And I just left it there for a holiday weekend, wouldn't get it till Tuesday, He would, no matter what. Our game was on Tuesday nights. If it got done at 6 a.m., he was actually a half hour late for work because he'd get in at 6. And he ran himself rugged for a big guy, And I hope that's not what caused it. I hope he was healthy. He did a small bid for the bookmaking operation. Small bid, home, went to a nice camp, came home fast, good family man. I liked Frankie a lot, so I was glad that I got to patch things up with him. This was 10 years ago we patched things up. I haven't been around since. But I wasn't around for 5 years before that and when I started coming around, the beef was in 2009. And I always thought that's what put me back into the RICO charge with the feds, the conspiracy. But I think they would have picked me up no matter what, even though I was out of the life for 6 years. That's when I came home and I found out that I was supposed to be straightened out, and not that I wasn't going to be, but the things that somebody was telling me, it didn't look good. And I've said this before, I find a job. The 2 years I did was for the life, even though it was a state charge. Because when I did go up, because of my enterprise corruption first charge, that bullshit 120 days on Rikers Island, I even did 30 days of that. My record was OC. So there was guys going up with 6 years, 5 years that were getting that shock program, where it's 6 months you go home. Guys with 4 years, 3 years. I don't think I've seen somebody with 6 years. I've seen somebody with 4 years, 3 years, 3.5 years, go home. Non-violent, drug charges, you get shocked. 6 months, you do that whole thing, and I wind up getting caught up there. So when people talk about that diesel therapy, listen, diesel therapy, it happens in the state as well, because that's where I learned it. And I was a sentenced inmate. They weren't trying to break me. The cops that pinched me were a special crime unit. They weren't OCCIB, which is organized crime and anti-crime for New York State, New York City. They weren't them. They were following drugs. It was a drug unit, anti-crime, like I said, just one of them anti-crime units. Because if they were trying to break, well, the first place I ended up on Rikers Island, I thought they were. But it was only because of my charge. And then once they realized that I didn't get charged with the kingpin status, I didn't know there was a building. Well, I was in the same building. I didn't know there was a unit in this building that was as nice. Even though it was a shithole, it's just where I was gladiator school every day. So there was no reason for them to give me diesel therapy to try to break me, and I got caught in it for 9 hours. I mentioned this story before. Someone said, "What's he crying about?" Telling a story out of dumb shit. But back then, I was in my 20s. I was about 5'6", 135 pounds. Light hair, long. Until I got up there and they made me shave it. Shock makes you shave it. Even if you're disqualified, you still got to go through everything. And light eyes, light hair. I thought I was going to be a victim. I was going to have to just fight my way through everything. So I get the biggest guy on the bus going upstate, and he wasn't going where I was going because it was everybody under 40 went to shock. And then everybody else got dropped, split up from Ulster County. When we all get to Ulster County, everybody splits up. Everybody under 40 goes up to Canada. And then you either get pushed out to if you're an adolescent, the young kids where they were wilding. It was like Franklin, Washington, and there was another one where they were wilding out in these mediums. Franklin, Washington. Gowanda wasn't, DWI jail. It was an old hospital, turned into a jail next to Elmira. So that's when I got to see Elmira. What do they call it? The rat chasers. Somebody got the correct name, because I was actually with one of them. But that's where you would hear that name, the rat hunters, rat chasers. They only exist in jail. Elmira is where they're the biggest. So I took that 9-hour bus ride, getting off, switching buses, getting handed a slab of bologna on 2 stale pieces of bread with a milk that's warm, and you can't use the bathroom if you gotta take your shit. And you go in that back, first of all, you're cuffed to somebody on the legs when you're sitting on the bus. So he's got to come with you to the back. Now, they don't mind if you got to take a piss. And there's something there to wipe your hands with, not even wash your hands with, but they don't mind. They come, they stand there, you open up the gate, you pee, and you leave. But if you got to take a shit, you got to keep your leg out the door open, and your shit. And there's people going to maxes, mediums, up for big numbers, and you could get really caught up. And listen, men go to the bathroom. I'm guilty of it. You shit 4 or 5 times a day, you know what I mean? And in a situation like that, your stomach is in rare form, and it has nothing to do with being scared. It's just, even though we're chameleons and we, adapt to our environments and blend in, it's still the unknown with anything. It builds anxiety in you, even if you don't know you have anxiety. It builds in you. And this is where the PTSD comes in, because that builds in you without you knowing. Now, all those panic attacks and shit, well, then, that's being scared. And there's people that have them on the streets, and it's because they're scared of something, But you have a panic attack in jail, you better just check in, So, but that's like the anxiety, and you can't do nothing about it. It's your stomach, I had a beef in the feds over that. In the state, I was good. I spent a lot of time on Rikers Island. I got warmed up to that. I was young. And I was the guy that usually, like clockwork, early in the morning, after dinner, late at night. This is what men do. Men shit a lot. I've known some that don't at all, and they're like envious to men who could. One of the older guys I stood with, his brother, they were twins, actually was the one that taught me how to drink, hardcore scotch. I think I was with the younger kids once, and I was drinking Jägermeister, and he pulled me away from them. Because, we were in bars at 14, 15. We never got caught. And from the guys that I stood with in the streets, in the park, in the arcade, we called it, to it had pool table, air hockey, and an NBA jam. But that's where we took action out of and sold fireworks. So, he was one of them, and he taught me how to drink scotch at a young age. It didn't agree with me because of my stomach, so I laid off of it. But when I was with the older guys, I would drink because I could let loose and trust them. And even if I went home lumped up, I knew I was with them, so I got lumped up in a good fight then. But, so, that's how that happened. And these are the things, so in the state, I was good. The feds, I got into a beef with a bunkie over going to the bathroom. You spend a lot of time in your cell in the feds, a lot of time. Usually if you're doing box time, they got to deal with it. And the feds, they double bunk a lot in the box, and they mix race, where I told you in the state, a lot of times I was in a single man cell, and if I did get a bunkie, in the hole of the box, he was either, the furthest they would stretch it would be a Hispanic man, Dominican, Mexican, Puerto Rican, something like that. But most of the time it was white, Puerto Rican, black, like that in the state. So I got leg locked and black box locked, but we don't get locked to each other, except you get the one chain to each other's legs. 5'6", 135 pounds to a guy that's 6'4", 6'5", 325. Big country. That happened. He was from the South. So all of a sudden he became country to big country. Now I know I'm going up there for no reason, because I know there's OC on my record, even though it was a bookmaking case before I even had a felony. The Queens DA was talking about me and targeting me. And those are stories also we're going to be telling on this channel. And my wife at the time, Dan Brown's assistant, said to her, I owned my own house at the time in my name, and I was putting it up for somebody, so I had to be there to sign the title over. And I don't know where I was at the time. I kept always trying to play the corner in a way I didn't want to be seen by these assistant district attorneys. And I remember when the assistant asked her name, I didn't hear any of it, and she told her, and she was like, "Do you know what your husband does for a living?" And my fiance wife at the time, I forgot what year it was. I had to be married because I had the house, so it might have been like the first year I was married. And she's like, "No, he goes to work every day for the union." And the assistant U.S. attorney, district attorney, left. And I asked her, I said, "What did she?" Because she seen me in the corner. I knew who she was. She was a famous district attorney and worked right with Dan Brown and the organized crime with CCIB. And I asked her, and she told me that's what they said. I said, "Do you know what your husband does?" And I didn't even think I got my B felony yet. I think I had an E and a C, or an E and a D at the time. It was either an E and a D or an E and a C at the time. I didn't even have a B felony yet. And they already knew who I was, had their sights on me, and I think, was I 23? It's nothing to brag about. So this is what I'm trying to explain. I'm not going to hold back on who I was and what I did. I was trying to lay off because the beef was getting out of hand on YouTube, and I'm not getting involved in that, and I happened to get dragged in it anyway. And I got more street time in Cosa Nostra than most of these guys that were made. Most of these guys that think they've been around forever. Most of these guys that were running around shooting. I've sat and broke bread with 4+ bosses in my own family. Okay? So that's the stories that we're also going to get into about how the captain I hung out with every day was like, "No, if he answers your question, answer him." And that's what we were doing in the social club. If I seen other wise guys come in from other crews that were with our family, and we had guys that came in from crews from other families, And I would ask them, oh yeah, you did that, what's going on with that? And just, not directly, but indirectly. And they would look at Ryan, like, he loves that shit, tell him. Like, yeah, he knew. I loved it. And at 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, I loved it. I loved everything about it. So when I tell a story about going from making so much money to making so little and getting pinched and getting on the radar, well, you know what? That's what I wanted to do. So when I say I should have stood over there, I wouldn't have stood over dealing drugs or doing anything else. That's where I wanted to be. That's where I wanted my reputation to be. I wasn't going to be a punk. I was going to be a stand-up guy in that life. I knew what I was going to do. And that got nothing to do with jumping off a global please or changing your life or going in or Queen for just being a stand-up guy. As there's no one, I'm not going to be anybody's victim. No one's going to extort me. I'm going to earn. I'm going to beef. Yeah. So when I gave you the stories about cityscapes, I was one of those guys strapped up and bulletproof vest up because I was small enough at the time to hide the vest. I was one of the guys that was trusted enough to go up there like that, and I told the story, and somebody that knew the story jumped in my DMs, pissed at me that I downplay my stories, and it was just like anything else. Like, I'm tired of listening to people say I'm up talking my stories. I haven't even began to give you the fullest effect of my entanglement in the life, and I'm already hated. I'm already on the radar. I'm already, if hasn't been, already being looked at or investigated for something I'm probably not doing. So you might as well get it raw and get it hard. This channel was always about the truth. I've given you the truth. I just never give you the whole thing. And you guys always want names, and you'll get names and places and times because my memory's good like that. But it's still hard. As much as people want to think that we all go in talking and you can't shut us the fuck up, well, we don't. So when we tell these stories, sometimes they're being told for the first time because you're told never to repeat. And that's the reason we all ended up on a RICO case in 2011, and it was the biggest pinch in the history of Cosa Nostra, the history of the mafia, in Italy, here, 7 crime families. Insane. About 25 cat, it was just 727 guys. So it was the reason that I was on it. It was the reason why I was looking at 20 years before I even got charged. And you know how much evidence there was? Zero. Donut hole. No weapons, no drugs, no money, no jewelry. They were looking for jewelry, and my friend's house was a captain. He had 25 empty Rolex boxes. They thought they hit the jackpot, like they were going to confiscate 25 Rolexes. And in 2011, they are not what they are today. You'd be able to earn in a week and go buy yourself a brand new one back then. I don't know when this price gouged, went through the roof, like Apple stock, or the way top stock just plumaged is the way watches, which I don't get because jewelry is what hit the roof. Watches, while people were staying home during the pandemic, shouldn't have been making money. But there's people that set the playing field for that. I'm not one of them. So, yeah. And it was funny because one of the statements to me was, what were you going to do with all those empty Rolex boxes when I got pinched? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I had no idea what these guys were talking about. They already had been, I guess, like, they go to the upper echelon first, like, to catch them off guard, which I try to explain. They were waiting every Tuesday and Thursday, every Monday and Friday. They couldn't find me. It wasn't that I hide. It's just that I'd rather turn myself in. I'll never run, never miss a court date. You can't beat them. And from what I've seen, with all this money that people have, maybe if you're not Italian and you got that kind of money, you got a slim chance of getting a decent bid or maybe a decent bail. No. Not Sicilians, not Italians. It's RICO automatically. So I'm like, I didn't know what they were talking about. And then I remember when I got into the conversation and he was wondering what I was doing, he goes, oh, he goes, by the way, he goes, I had all my Rolex boxes because he already had his jewelry moved. He never kept anything at his house because it was burglarized by a family member. So he already had all his jewelry moved. And they knew for 10 months they're getting pinched. They had so much time to put away money, jewelry, back, slow down on the extortion and, you know, whatever else they were doing and closing social clubs. They're like 10 months or something. I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 months they had. So they were wondering why didn't they find the money? Why didn't they find jewelry? They knew you were coming. And he's like, I told them they were for you. I told them that you sell them on eBay. Which was pretty funny because I used to bring my boxes and papers back and give them to my dealer because I didn't care. And I probably would have brought those back if we were talking on an everyday term. We were on terms to speak every day. I mean, me and Al, but we weren't at that point. And at that point, we were actually talking, but just not on the terms that we should have been normally, because I started coming back around in 09, that Christmas Eve. So I came around Christmas Eve 09, so then it was 2010. Then we had that whole year. They find out, I think, halfway through, springtime maybe, that they're going to get pinched. And then, 20 days into the new year, 2011 is when they came. So they had more than enough time. So I would bring, which I see now, they used to give out the big red wallets in the woman's Rolexes, and the men's would get the green wallets. They sell things for a few $100s now on the internet. We used to give all that stuff back because if we were trading watches back or giving watches back to other watches, it was with the same dealer. So we didn't worry about papers and boxes and things like that. He had OCD, so he would take his, put it in the box, put it away. Where like my OCD was when I'd get my 2 pairs of Jordans 3 weeks before they would come out, everybody that Saturday they would come out would be all wearing the same pair of Jordans. I'd be wearing the Jordans that came out right before that. And then if there was a back-to-back, then I'd wear the Jordans that were coming out the following Saturday, and they're wearing the ones that just came out. So I would go and put those away. It was like a 30-day rule usually. Put my new sneakers on till after 30 days. Just wear them right out of the store. That was mine. Where they would put on, because they didn't wear too many sneakers, they Air Maxes or Air Force Ones. I remember I put a basketball team together because that's what I used to do. They would play softball, basketball, and football, but I would put the teams together. After a while, when I started slowing up, they would always, nudge me at the club and go, get a softball team, get a football team, because the big guy hated that we played sports. And they always try to keep that reputation, But that was their chance to, if we had a basketball team, they'd go buy a pair of Jordans to play basketball, which they're the worst sneakers to play basketball in. And then when it was over, they would throw them out or put them in their trunk and give them to somebody in the neighborhood. And softball, they wouldn't wear hats, but they got to wear, Ken Griffey Jr. style. Everybody loved to wear hats backwards during, softball season. How Griffey used to wear them during the All-Star games and the home run derby or during practice before the game. So that was their time to, dress out of pocket, wear basketball shorts instead of having to wear a sweatsuit or slacks. Because that was a very big thing. Like I try to explain, I had more beefs with my own crew over not shaving. Like this right here tomorrow, they would beef about. This is going a little bit more tomorrow, and they would see it. You're gonna shave. You got a barber coming over. It's 9 o'clock. They're closed. Well, they got one coming over because why do you got hair in your face? Why you got hair in your neck? Why don't you have a haircut? Why are you wearing a hat? Why you got jeans on? Like these were like the things. Like those were like my beefs with my own crew. It was always my hat. I can't tell you how many times a week we ate at Don Pep's, and Don Pep's had this thing with hats. And I remember because Mike would work the door to father, and he hated baseball hats. So every time we walk in, and they knew I would do it on purpose because it's like I'm wearing my hat wherever I go. But there's a few things you learn as an Italian man. When you're sitting at the table with your family, you always have a shirt on. And you never wear a hat at the table, and you never put a new pair of sneakers on the table. It's like a thing, you know, with Italian men. New shoes, new sneakers, shirt always on at the table while you're eating. While there was women around, you never walked around with your shirt off. And hats were forbidden. I won the card game. Any chance I got, I was in a fitted. Oh my God. It was always an argument going to the airport, sitting first class, got to get dressed, got to go to the baseball game. I've said this all before. And these were like this was just internal, our little crew, So you got to remember, two were wise guys. There used to be, one was on his way to an acting captain because his father was still home and he was the captain. And two were wise guys. One, they were getting to change his last name to his mother's last name, and he would have been straightened out. I heard that come right out of the boss's mouth of the Gambino family, okay? She wanted him straightened out and didn't want to know his last name. As much he loved him. Yeah. Chris was loved by Bobby Glasses. He wanted him straightened out. So that, I could tell you more than anything, was like, first things first, get him straightened out. And I think that's when he was a captain it started. Because when he was a captain, they will accept Al, because Al was made before Bobby. But when the other two got made, Tony and the other one got made, they were under him. And Chris would go there just out of respect and was always never excused, always spoken in front of. He was another one. Bobby, and if anybody knows, Bobby Glasses didn't speak a lot. But when he did talk, he talked to Chris. Loved Chris. That I know for sure. And I used to remember him saying, he used to break my balls, Chris is going to get straightened out before you as soon as he changes his name. But Chris didn't. Out of respect for his father, who was a retired cop, and you never can get... These are rules that go back a long time. If you had a family member that was in your immediate family, that was law enforcement, that worked at probation, you couldn't get straightened out. I just found out there was a guy around. He used to report directly to Ronnie, not me, Irish kid, looked a little like Ray Liotta. He actually worked for probation, and I don't think anybody knew, because he bought drugs from me, which they didn't know about. So when he would come into the neighborhood, he would meet one of them for Shylock money, and then he just wound up meeting the same person. Once he went full-fledged into the life, he would meet that one person who went full-fledged for bookmaking and Shylock. But he'd meet one person for Shylock, one person for bookmaking, and he would always stop at my house last, because he would never want to drive around to meet any of them with drugs on his car. So I was living, he would meet me, I had an apartment in Howell Beach at the time, and he would meet me there. I think it was Lindenwood, if I'm not mistaken. There was a few places, because he was trustworthy, so I had a place that I always would use, either Howell Beach or Lindenwood, that wasn't my house, that I didn't care, who came there. But meaning in that life, he was one of them. And then he would go directly and meet with Ronnie at Ronnie's house. And when Ronnie went away, he would meet directly with Ronnie's family. And I found this guy worked for probation. Not only that, friends that we call friends, not in the life, not street kids, that worked in the same yard as him, he was telling on. Only if I knew. I'm glad. There's one thing that I got into a big beef with them over was his wedding. He came to me and invited me to his wedding, but was like, I can't give you the invitation, I gotta give it to the guys, and of course I know I gotta give them a table and they're gonna take you, but I want you to know that, you would have been invited. But I was going through so much. I met another girl, she lived in another state, we were moving to Vegas, we were getting a place in Vegas, I had a place in Jersey. It was just, my life was insane at this time. I was everywhere but where I should have been. And I was on their shit list. So me and them were constantly arguing and fighting. There was no more, every time they called to meet me, I'd show up. with jeans and Jordans or Tim's on and a hat, not dressed up to go out, not shaved. Yeah, so these are the things, yeah, in a crew that they fight about. A crew that makes money. If you're with a crew that don't make money, their biggest argument is like that scene in Donnie Brasco. You know, start earning around here, somebody's gonna get clipped. You know? Well, that wasn't us, because everybody was earners, and most of the time, me and Chris never got bothered, I think. Chris didn't, but Chris did a lot of earning with them, working at the clubs, working the card game. Sleep in peace, him and Frankie Boy. They worked a lot of the games and stuff. So, yeah, so he earned with them. I never earned with them. I earned on my own, but the earning wasn't the problem. So that was the way you dressed, hair on your face, the way you spoke, the music you listened to. You spoke a Lou Street, forget it. You got called every name in the book. So instead of downplaying, I'm gonna make sure you get the stories and you get it the right way. You know, I should have told you, yes, I was one of the guys that was there, strapped up, bulletproof vest up, ready to go. You know, that's who I was for him. You know, like I was whatever he needed me to be. With my crew, I would have did anything for them. You know, when Ronnie G was abusing them and I came home. You know, at first when he came to me and to see if we had a problem, and of course. I kind of brushed it off with the no, of course, because I didn't really grasp why. I kind of thought it was his nephew, because I hung out with his other nephew who always had me upside down with a bookmaker. And I'm like, I'm home on work release. How can this guy already have me bent up with a bookmaker? He always had me upside down, his nephew. He was a very good friend. To this day, I love him. You know, he was just somebody that just one of those kids that you grow up with that you just love. No matter how many jams they get you into or how many times they jam you up, you just got a special love for them. He was one of them. So I was like, oh, maybe that's what this is about, feeling me out. This guy's already using my name, and I haven't even hit the bricks yet. So, yeah, I had to go to I don't know if he was acting. I think he was acting because he was out on bail, so I think they took it away from him while he was while he was fighting to go back on it, because he was home on a medical bond. And I went to see him and told him before I went to them and said, listen, once I found it all out, what he was doing to them, this wasn't going on. You know, we were the princes of the city. That was it. Like, no, we can't have a reputation of being abused like that. And, you know, they did a few things to redeem themselves without me, which was good while I was away. And, which I respected. And regardless what they did to me, I'm going down with the Titanic. You know, like, that was my crew. I was around his father. No matter how they spoke about me, I should have left. I should have walked away. Never helped them. Never been around them. I had that choice. You know, like I said, the guys that I grew up with, the older guys that taught me how to drink, that were fucking the toughest guys around in my neighborhood, and all had legitimate jobs, that were known to be legitimate tough guys, would tell me all the time. You know, but then they showed me their parts too. Weren't as bad as these guys, but they had things with them as well, you know? And they clearly told me, like, what are you doing? Like, you're good over here. You're taking action. And I'm going to get into a story about taking action for one of my friends from there, who I'm no longer friends with any of these guys, not one of them, from my life growing up. They talk about me now like I'm a stranger, because the one scumbag, Irish Richie, put my name in everybody's, in his mouth and everybody's head and everybody's ears the wrong way, which, he'll keep walking around like shit is sweet. That's all right, because I got a sweet tooth. And, but no, like, I get spoken about now from my childhood. I'm talking about 14, when I got the name Hootie and on, from like 1991 and on. Not, sandbox days, but young enough for this day and age that I didn't exist in their friendship. It's a shame, because the love and respect that I had for them and gave them was insane. I respected them more than I respected the wise guys in my neighborhood, because they showed me how to be a man, how to stand up, how to not leave your friends in a fight. Taught me that get up and go to work every day is the tough guy, And it's a shame, because a lot of them were Irish. It just happened to be, the one that's scumbag me the most is full blown, and it's terrible because he brings a terrible name to them. But they were all stand-up guys, Me and one of them had an issue over a woman, and like anything else, we cut the snake's head off, and that's where the problem ended. I never got to cut the snakes off with the other one head off, so all he keeps doing is burying himself deeper and deeper with me. Like I said, he thinks shit is sweet, and I got a sweet tooth. So I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna give it to you the right way. These guys were all stand-up guys. Growing up, they all, got involved in bookmaking. No drugs. None of them got involved in drugs, but they all had something to earn a little bit. We were all low middle class family guys, kids, and some of their families had better. Some of them, they all wind up getting great jobs or opening up great companies. Nothing for the feds to look at. I remember there was a rumor. I just came home, and they posted in Jerry Capisi, Anthony Hootie Russo joins Team America. No matter if you're good, bad, or indifferent, if there's a rumor out there that you're no good, one, the government will protect you at that point, not if you're on here telling stories. And two, they would never ask you to wear a wire or put yourself in jeopardy. This idiot ran around telling my closest friends, who were the legitimate people now, and if they did commit crimes 10 years, 15 years earlier, they weren't crimes that could be brought up as organized crime or bad crimes, that I was wearing a wire. And it ruined 2 good jobs for me, where I'd probably be in a different position today. I wouldn't be doing this. And he did it all for a woman. Crazy, devilish woman he did it for, while he's married with kids of himself. This is what men do. Not even his own wife does he take orders from, but he would from an outsider over true friendship. They will claim things that never happened. That's why they did it. So, growing up like that, this is the stories that I was getting. Take care, stay away from those kids, they're no good. And, like when I'm 17, 18, I get involved with these guys that are the same age as me. Besides my friend's father, who's older than everybody, is, that's our Sonny from Bronx Tale, and that's the guy I worked my whole life to get around, and I was going to take advantage of it. And I remember when the beefs were squashed and we were invited to the other social clubs, they never went. And they told me, why make yourself, you're doing great. Why make yourself happy? Because that's where I wanted to be. And the crazy part about it was, our place was with one of the biggest guys after John Sr. went away, was Lil Nicky Carrazzo. So I could have worked my way up in, that form. I worked for them, I was around them, and it was only me, Magwa's nephew, and one other guy from that area. And that was us running the office. And at one point, I just ran the office by myself. So it wasn't like there was a bunch of us, which there was 100 of us. And Brooklyn always went to bat for us whenever we had beef with Howard Beach. So a lot of guys and a lot of things that we got away with, we did. And a lot of them were Irish, Italian, and they got away with a lot. They were tough guys, and other wise guys would stick up for them because they liked them. But these guys taught me the way, and they told me, stay away from these guys, and even as bad as a few of them have screwed me over, nothing like the one has, and he still keeps doing it, but some of them have screwed me over. Some of them talk about me like I've never existed in their life. I was a nobody in their life. You know what I mean? And then I get involved with Cosa Nostra, leaving them. They still see Cutie Hootie because they gave me the name. That was the name. They don't see 18, 19, 20-year-old Hootie trying to earn his stripes to get into that life. A lot of us still went to dinners. We would see each other at each other's christenings or communions or other weddings of friends that didn't get married yet and were getting married. And they would always tell me, stay away from those kids. What are you doing? And I actually put a lot of them together on softball teams, on basketball teams, and baseball teams, and basketball, baseball, softball, football, you name it, you know. And I put a lot of them together in my wedding party alone. And, you know, like, I was one of the first guys in my wedding party. I had my Cosa Nostra crew, the kids I grew up with, my family, which I had a gay cousin who I'm closer than anybody to. I put him right in my wedding party. You know, people want to talk about, you know, diverse. And there was, you know, of course, people of different backgrounds at my wedding. And that I'm going to do what I want to do. And the people that I care about are going to be there. And no one was ever going to dictate that to me, you know. Could I fight the possibility if I had a relative in my immediate family that was a cop? No, you can't fight that. But Bobby, who was boss, was going to straighten out somebody who was a half Italian if he changed his last name and his father was a cop. So it all matters how you get along and your relationship with that certain captain and certain wise guys. And like I said, I mean, it was, I mean, you go to, Thursday night was probably our biggest card night. And that's not money reasons. That's our own club. When we did big card games, they would be rented apartments in different areas, Long Island City, Astoria, beautiful areas, Long Island. We'd rent out an apartment, a house, just for a big game. Not a hotel room or anything like you see in the movies. And only use it once a week. So nobody knew. You know, it was a residential area. They didn't tell it wasn't, you know, cookie cutter homes to make it more noticeable, but an area busy enough for them not to pay attention, that we were only there once a week and there was 50 cars parked on the block, but people would park a couple blocks away, but Mercedes, Ferrari, G-Wagon, it was a little bit noticeable, so you had to get into like a little of a middle class, upper class area, so it would not be that noticeable, Ferrari parked on the street. And so this would be social club nights, card games, Continental, Romino, Scala. We start off with Scala, and then when all the guys get there, the Continental game gets off, and the Continental game slows down, and maybe a Romino game on a Saturday. But the Thursday game was, we pay dealer's choice poker, start off with Scala with a few guys, dealer's choice poker, get enough guys for a game of Continental, because, you know, we all mimicked what John Sr., you know, loved. And that was Continental was his favorite game. Just as that fake story, you know, I remember back in '96, you know, we were told nobody watched the Gotti movie, and if you got the HBO, cancel it. Like, they went too far as some people saying cancel HBO if you got cable. But back then we still had chip boxes. I don't know if you remember that. You know, pay $85, get your box zapped, and you had every channel. So, and I remember nobody watched it. Of course, I went and watched it because it was. I think I watched it with Richie Boy too. That was Ronnie's nephew, who was my very good friend, and he. I think we went and watched it somewhere because I'm big into cinema. Don't care about the actors and the actresses. We all know about them being garbage pails and athletes and all that other stuff, but cinema, and it was probably one of the best written. And I don't know, they're changing writers for the second one. I don't know why. Best written, and the writer from the Green Book, unbelievable writer. But the guy that wrote the first one in '96 was amazing. Greatest opening scene in cinema history. I mean, you could probably put parts of that movie up against your favorite parts of The Godfather. But I remember coming down from the Gotti regime then. I think Junior was boss. No, I don't know if it can, I never heard him directly say it. I know Peter didn't like it because I remember in '96 I was friends with him. Didn't see it, but just didn't like there was a movie out while his father was suffering and marrying. But we were told, you know, throughout, you know, everybody, like, I remember hearing it from the kids that I stood with, and I just started staying with them, to the guys that I was bookmaking with, all the guys, like, word came down from Canarsie. Nobody watched that, because I was still hanging out by the park at the time, at our place. Nobody watched that movie. Don't give them no airplay. I remember that. And Gianni Russo went on and said he put Gotti on the forward, Amato Sante, and got the okay to play Gotti. First of all, I'm not saying he's an actor. He's not gonna wait to get the okay from nobody. He's a civilian. He's not gonna get hurt for playing Gotti. And Guy's in Marion. Can't get a phone call from his own family or to his own family. But Gianni Russo got him on the phone and got an okay from him. You know, I don't know the man. I'm not saying I dislike the man or causing more beef, but he actually went on, I think it was Vlad TV or one of these shows, and said, I told Ahmad to calm down. I got John on the phone. John told him it was fine. I spoke to John, and I let John speak to him. This guy can't speak to, this guy don't want to speak to his own family. You got him on the phone with Ahmad Asante. And it's probably funny because he probably never even sat in a room with Ahmad Asante. But yeah, so I remember that, like, that's where they go. Like, from having facial hair. There was a restaurant that was with the Gottis on Cross Bay. The guy was around them, and he grew a mustache. The place is still there, so we'll leave that out of it because it's a legitimate place. And he either cracked the guy or told the guy to go home and shave his mustache, or go in the bathroom and shave his mustache. Yeah, had a mustache. That was a mustache. So this is how I explain it to you. Don't watch the movie. Facial hair, hats, baggy jeans, whatever was in style then. You know, if they wore something, it was white on white Air Force Ones or Air Max 95s. They went as far as. They got away with that. Like, listen, we were young. I'm not going to miss my youth. I did miss a lot. You know, like, it's why I'm big into, certain urban labels now, because I didn't get it. I mean, even though back then, I would get a shirt or something, and off the bat I went to Supreme and bought a shirt with the Warriors or Bruce Lee on it. Oh my God, it was the end of the world. So that was like one and out. Put that away. So as soon as I get upstate, the diesel therapy for no reason. So yes, maybe they do put some people through it, but I know a lot of people in the feds that get Con Air. That's not diesel therapy. And then you get, I got stuck at Wendy for 2 days, which is from what I was able to see, one of the nicest Maxes upstate. Elmira over the Columbus Day weekend. And that whole week, now sitting on the flats in Auburn, not Elmira, I'm sorry, in Auburn, Columbus Day weekend, and that whole week. Got moved out that Friday to another jail, sat there for 2 days, was the worst. The rats are the size of the rats are the size of cats, excuse me. And they get this bell in Auburn that rings. I think it's 6 or 6:30. I could probably even remember that. That's how long ago it was, but just how it stuck with me. Oh, wait, what are you waking us up for? I mean, they're getting to go to the yard. They're getting, what's the flats? You don't move until, you're in transit. Now, this is a jail, Auburn. Auburn, it was like they built the jail. That's how it's probably one of the weirdest looking setups, and it's Auburn, New York, and then they built a town around the jail. You can see how old the jail is and how newer the town looks, but then you got all these little stores. So like when we were turning into Auburn, they opened it up. It's a wall. The whole, Maxes are all walls, and then a gate. Like a wall, grass gate type of castle looking thing. Weird. Dark, gloomy. And then you got, like, when we were making the turn, I remember seeing a pharmacy, like a mom and pop pharmacy, dry cleaner. And you're turning right into Auburn the Max, where people spend most of their life. That was where the one kid who wasn't even in Central Park was in the kid's apartment when the cops came to get him in the Central Park 5 thing. And he asked if he could go with his friends. He was a little slow at the time, didn't realize. He asked to go with his friend for questioning. And they said, oh yeah, come along. That kid wound up going and getting arrested with him, and he wasn't even there. He was just, I think he lived in the same building and came to hang out with his friend in the apartment. He's the guy that winds up in Auburn and winds up in the same unit as the guy. Well, they're all cells, so maybe the same flat. The flat's at the bottom, and then there's tiers. Maybe he ended up in the same thing, but this guy was talking about it, and he got some of the homies to approach him, and they approached him, and the guy, I think, was doing life already, and he told the story, and the kid couldn't believe it, and that's how that all happened. It was in Auburn that all went down, that those kids got cleared. the guy who really did it, was serving life for 100 years or something, or 50 years for something like of the similar crime, and he wound up talking about the whole crime and how these kids were doing it, and they ran it to this kid who wasn't even supposed to be in prison, and he was there the longest because I think he wound up losing his good time or something, and or confessing because he didn't know what he was doing, confessing. I remember they had the tapes I watched on the documentary, the first one, when they were kids, and they wound up. I think he wound up confessing, and he wasn't even in Central Park at the time. He was in his building. He just happened to be in the apartment when the cops went there to get one of the kids. It's weird. You see how things work out? They still, I think it was after 16 years or something, and he wound up running into the guy that really did it and gets that guy to come forward. You know, a bunch of people, you know. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of threatening going on because if they found out you're a raper and a max, it's over. Doesn't make a difference if it's women or children. If it's children, yes, of course, a lot worse is going to happen to you, but you're going to get shanked or stabbed in the ear with a piece of metal no matter what, for touching a woman or a child. And I'm pretty sure they were going to get this guy. And they probably gave him a pass for him telling the truth and coming forward. And he probably got it pretty rough where he is now. But Auburn was the place, and I remember looking at it and then coming home and reading about it, and that was the place where it was cracked. And then I found out how the town was built around it, and very weird, very, very weird how the prison's set up in just the middle of a town, and not up in the mountains, like, you know, like up in the hills where a lot of these places are. Nothing like that. It's just in the middle of the town of Auburn. Very weird. So I caught diesel therapy for no reason. I'm sentenced. It's not like the feds. These guys put you away and they forget about you. We never even had a local detective in Ozone Park that would break our walls. I know I hear about people in Brooklyn, these local cops, NYPD or plainclothes or there's special crime units, OCCIB, which is organized crime. But they wait, you get a case put on you, and they put on you, and they throw you in a pool called probation or parole, and they forget about you. The feds, as soon as they have units that are placed on every crime family. I mean, I remember there used to be like 150 on one crime family, 80 on another, 300 on another. It's not even close to that anymore, supposedly, from what I hear. But they stay on you. You come home, you do your probation, you got a job, you're doing the right thing. And it's like, well, you know, we haven't picked up guys in a long time. What's this guy doing? They don't ever believe in rehabilitation in the feds for organized crime members. Don't make a difference you're an associate, a friend of an associate. I mean, they had me slap dab in the middle, treating me as I was a made guy. That's how they treated me when I was in there, with the time, with the charges. And it was like, damn, I would have been committing crazy crimes for the last 6 years if I knew this is the way they were going to treat me. So usually going to get it like that. And I caught the diesel therapy, and they sent me up to shock. And I'm like, I know I'm not going to get shocked. I spoke to my lawyer. He's like, there's no shot. Your record's OC automatically from your bookmaking pinch. I remember, yes, I had it. I already got kicked out of Local 79, which is a laborers union. You can't work on the Eastern Seaboard. I remember them telling me I had to work I could work out west for the laborers, but I can't work on the Eastern Seaboard. So right there, and I got that taken away before I even had a misdemeanor. They took that away from me, just for an association. And I never went in to sign paperwork or nothing. They went on my word. I told them I was going to take it. I was in Las Vegas. I said, I'm going to take this and throw this out on Las Vegas Boulevard. I says, I don't need my book anymore. I wasn't showing up anyway. I was never there, so it didn't matter to me. Unbeknownst that I would have needed that today, but they wouldn't let me back in anyway. So when I went up and they disqualified me from the program, now I'm not in the annex, I'm in shock. Now annex is where you go through, it's like a second reception, and then they push you out into whatever prison they're going to send you to. I'm not even there yet. I'm on the shock side. Shaved my head, cut my sideburns up to here. They make you clip your nails with a nail clipper roped to the wall with that 100,000 people used. It's disgusting, and you can't say no. They want your nails down to where you're bleeding. And then when you go in to get a haircut, you can't say nothing. They shave your head. And I'm like, but I'm not even, I know. They're like, we don't know anything. And then I remember after they did all of that, it was freezing up there. Brockton, New York. You can see at a certain part of the jail into Canada. There's a train on the yards, because I remember one of the kids that got cut through the tuna can over into the train yards where they couldn't find it, where the train would come. that was Canada's side. It was insane. The water, the bridge, you could see it all. I don't know if it was Niagara Falls itself that we seen, because I remember them saying they drove 20 minutes to Niagara Falls. People that came to see me would have to fly, and then they would stay for the weekend. They went to Niagara Falls. And I'm like, what am I doing in Brockton, New York? Like, this is insane. And, you know, throwing a rock away from Canada. And it wasn't nobody was harassing me. No cops were looking to question me. I was never even questioned in that case. I was never even brought into an interrogation room. Right to Rikers Island, waited almost 4 months, bailed out, 8-10 months, copped out, went to the Ford building, went to Ulster, went up to Brockton, New York. And I remember them saying after they shaved me, "Oh, Russo, don't get comfortable, you're disqualified." I says, "Yeah, but I knew this already." But they don't tell you when they're going to bring you over to the annex. So now you have to do what these people that are programming to do. And I was there for 3 weeks. It was like the worst 3 weeks of my life. You got to sleep just in your boxes. Ice cold floor, you got to, in the box, they're foot by foot, you have to stand in them while they do the count at 5 a.m. You're wobbling. You're wobbling. And then at 5 a.m., you know what you have to do? You got to make your bed to where the corners are perfect. You can bounce a quarter off of it. I never got that right. I made it the best I could. And then you got to get fully dressed. Blanket you cannot use. You put your coat on, and then you can lay on top of your bed without messing it up. Because I'm not programming with the rest of the guys, because they're going out doing 10-mile runs, because I'm disqualified. And I would see other guys that were disqualified get out one day, out the next day. I felt like they were messing with me, because I spent 3 weeks there, getting up every day in my underwears, freezing my ass off. No heat in the whole place, because they're trying to break it. They don't want nobody to finish the program. So I'm like, I would have been 3 weeks into this program. You go to the mess hall, and I got to live like them. You can eat as much as you want, or whatever they're serving. Commissary for the 6 months that you're there is only toiletries. Because I got a commissary sheet, and I'm like, I can't get commissary? I says, I'm disqualified. They're like, no, you can't get it. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm talking to guys who got 4 years, 3 years. I'm pretty sure there was a guy who was 6, I'm not sure, and got it twice. He got it twice for drugs. Because I was OC already, not on that case. That case was possession with intent, which there was no intent, but they charged you with intent anyway. That's how I got the 2 flat instead of the 7.5 to 15. Non-violent drug bids become flat bids, and they want to hit you with everything. So it was intent when there was no intent, it was just possession. And they couldn't find, if I didn't hand it to them, they would have never found it. But this is what they're doing to me. So when you go to the mess hall and you go to each server, you got to go like this. That means a little bit. When you're like that means a little bit more. Like that means a lot. Like that means as much as you can. And they'll feed you. They'll put whatever they're serving, whatever shift food they're serving you. It's still better than the feds. I would go like that every day. I ate like shit. It was like that every day. Because what happens is, even though I'm not in the program, you get 60 seconds to eat your whole meal. And then if you don't, well, your unit, and it's double time to everything, meaning like you don't walk, everything is like a light jog. The whole place it's like Candace the movie. That's the sound, yeah, it's like that. And everybody's double timing back to their dorm, or whatever they're doing. I would double back to the dorm and wait in the dorm all day. And then go to sleep at 5 o'clock. So if you didn't finish, and I didn't want to be the kid because I seen it right away. I came in the mess hall one day, and there was a kid standing up against the wall, shoving food in his mouth as fast as he could. And I was like, oh shit, what's that? And one of the servers was in my house. He knew I was disqualified, so I guess, because a lot of them don't even talk to you. And I remember he said, goes, if you don't finish your food, they make you stand up and finish it until you finish it while the rest of the units are eating as well, and then you can double back to your dorm. So this was me on every chow line, like this, and everything is point. You can't talk in the mess hall at all. Salt and pepper, napkin, anything that you needed was a point, and not like like there was certain ways you had to do it to get it. And I'm like, I'm living like this for 3 weeks. I'm like, these guys won't even give me the program. I go home in 6 months. Is this insane? And I think it was even like, it was 6 months, but I think it was 120 days. You complete the program. You do I think the last run's a 20-mile run. You complete that, you go home. But I'm sitting here for 3 weeks. That wasn't the best part. They stuck me in the annex, I think, for 90 days after that, which was the worst. But I got to do transitional services 1 and 3. They didn't give out 2, which was crazy. So that means like you're on your way to whatever program you get to like outside clearance. I didn't get that till like right before I was ready to come to work release, because I was on nonviolent, so you get a chance for that. And I didn't get it yet, but I had the 1 and 3 transitional. I only had to take 2, KSAT, ASAT. I had half an ASAT in at that prison. They didn't have a KSAT, so then I had to go. So anywhere I would have ended up, I was programmed out. I had all my hours besides my outside clearance hours, which I was never going to make. I was going to make it on work release, and I did the 400 hours. They also counted on work release, and I did my 400 hours on work release because I came home after 18 months on work release, and then did 24 months, which was crazy because it was supposed to be 85%. They wound up holding me in work release the whole time. And then I did 1 or 2 years of post-supervision, which is worse than Fed probation. 7 p.m. curfew, no matter what job you work. Once a week visits to your house. Once a week visits to the parole office. I had a family, new house, like everything. And so she never, ever piss tested me at home. They thought, my family thought it was like somebody from my job, and she would open the door of my front door, and I'd be upstairs always and look downstairs, and she'd wave and keep going. But she would swab me because I always had a problem peeing, and they were always afraid somebody coming in with fake pee, like the Irish scumbag he actually bought a fake dick to piss at work because he can't stop getting high. That's all right. He's sweet, and I got a sweet tooth. So they would swab me, but I would have to pay for that in my pocket, $10. $10, I think it was. And they dump it right into the thing, and they could tell if you got high. Then they would alcohol test you, and after a while she stopped alcohol testing me, realized I didn't like to drink, so what would I be drinking on parole for? But the parole officers are a little bit more lenient than the probation officers in the feds, meaning how they treat you, how they talk to you, more like human beings. And like I said, the feds don't forget about you, the state does. They just want to get rid of you. There's so many. And they think you're going to violate anyway. I wasn't even allowed to go back to my residency. My residence was under my name. If you get pinched in New York City, New York State, because you go way upstate, but in New York City, if you get locked up, you can't go back to where you got locked up. But the house was in my name. I said, it's where I live with my family. You chose to lock me up there. That's how you guys set it up. I didn't have nothing in my house for you to lock me up. You didn't find anything on the search warrant. You had a cooperator handed me something in the streets, and I walked in my front door with it, which never happened before, ever. So that was a little bit of a fight as well, to be able to go back to my own residency. You got to get your deed, a mortgage slip, taxes, insurance. I had to give them a bunch of paperwork notarized just to be able to go back to my own residency. If I didn't live there and I didn't own it, I wouldn't have been able to go back there. And they do that sometimes. Like when I came home from the feds, they had a big issue with me living in organized crime areas. And believe me when I tell you, the 5 boroughs, there's places that you would never go live. And they're highly crime areas, just not organized crime areas where they want you to live. So I moved all the way out east for almost 5 years that I was on probation. They kept me on the whole time. They let me go 4 years, 7 months, something like that, the Christmas before I first aired on YouTube. And it was insane. It was insane. Their probation was insane. And they were just happy. I wanted to move out east. I'd never been out there before, but I knew it was quiet. It was away from people, places, and things. I was getting a legitimate job. If it was minimum wage, if it was whatever, it was the first time I was legitimately having to get up every day, go to work, put my 50, 60 hours a week in, pay my bills, end up with nothing at the end of the week. And that's what I did the whole time of my probation. And I did it till recently as well. So but it was my first time, but I had to act like I knew what I was doing, like I belonged there, like I knew the work, like I've lived as Anthony Russo, but You know, there was no Hootie until I came on YouTube last June. And then, until Vlad premiered, nobody still knew where I worked and lived about me. One person seen it, I think it was 90 days, I think so. I give it the 90-day mark it was, that I worked with and said something. And then it went on, and it actually even took a little while after that, because it wasn't like he was blabbing to all the board. He was just telling people around the store. And then once it gets in a girl's mouth, then everybody's gonna know about it, all right? So, and that's my story for today. These guys are gonna get some good stuff. I went an hour and 15, sorry, a little bit over, but I wanted to make a couple of things straight, let you know what was going on. And that's what happened. I want you guys to check out Dave Home Plate, like home plate, at yahoo.com. This guy did the John and Gene Show bats. He engraves things, he makes things, he's amazing. Works to do something right now, but not it's just for the show. For you guys, since I got into sports cards, I'll show you the 3 I picked up for nothing. I gotta remember how much money it costs to grade these things. I know you guys probably not into sports cards, but you know what? Any sports cards. This is a Frank Thomas rookie. Frank Thomas is where we started calling people Big Hoss on the softball field. And that's only a 9, but very grateful for it. Cost me nothing. One of my favorite players of all time, The Straw. I don't care about his personal life or what he did. He had one of the sweetest lefty swings next to Griffey Jr. That's while he was with the Mets. That's a 9. And then one card that is just amazing to me, because this guy was one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game and never won a Super Bowl, Dan Marino rookie. And that's an 8. These are, picked them up for nothing for the collection. It's better than stocks, guys. It doesn't cost you no money. And it's very easy if you do the right thing and you got a good name, become a nice influencer, and you get everybody of all ages involved in that. Maybe I'll rip one day on here. Rip and wax, that's what they call it. I'll rip a box. Once I start doing a little better in the sport and I start earning money, which there is none right now, I'll rip a box and I'll show you what my hustle legitimately is now by myself. All right? Go check out David Home Play at Yahoo. Unbelievable stuff. Bats, any sports stuff, anything. He engraves, he hand makes, personalizes. And listen, thank you for tuning in. Stay up and Jindan.